Hello, and welcome to my home in Baltimore for this video presentation in which I'm going to describe some trends in modern American education. I'm going to describe 4 trends and then talk a little bit about how I think they will impact the future of education in America. The 4 trends I'll be describing are the increased privatization and choice in education, high school reform, increased reliance on technology in the classroom, and increased globalization. At the end of the video, if you'd like to learn more about any of these trends, I'll list the references for the various sources I've used for this presentation. The first trend I'd like to talk about is high school reform. The goal of these reforms is to improve education, especially in high school, to ensure a smoother transition to college and more training and preparation for those not going to college, but instead going directly into the workforce. The main concern is that high school graduates are not prepared for the demands of college and the workplace, especially in the areas of technology and creative thinking. Some reforms that are underway are things like creating small, specialized schools within a school. For example, one Arizona school system recently instituted an international baccalaureate program at 2 of its schools and a World Studies Academy at another. In other parts of the country, high schools focusing on biotechnology, information technology, math, science, and engineering have been established. Reforms like these last examples certainly seem to dovetail nicely with the recent White House Educate to Innovate initiative, which is intended to increase the importance and quality of science, technology, engineering, and math education in the United States. A similar reform is the creation of magnet schools to help attract students who are interested in specific skills or content areas and provide them with specialized education and experience in those areas. One last example of the kind of high school reforms currently underway is the growing trend of encouraging high school students to declare a major or at least an area of specialization to help limit and focus their educational experience. I really think reforms like these are the way to go for the future. In many ways, our knowledge base and skill set has simply grown too large to expect any one person to be able to know and do it all. As we move forward, we're going to need to allow students to specialize, and we're going to have to rethink what we mean by the basics. We may be approaching the time when we have to have some hard conversations about what knowledge and skills are absolutely necessary for everyone to be exposed to, and what we can jettison. Next, I'd like to discuss the trend of increased choice and privatization in education. As someone who taught for 13 years in the Catholic school system and now teach at a charter school, this is a trend that really affects me personally. The argument is that schools will improve and become more efficient and effective if and when they have to compete for students. Some options that currently exist are allowing students to transfer to another school, charter schools, homeschooling, increased online and virtual education opportunities, and some places that allow vouchers for private and parochial schooling. The 3 trends that seem to be growing the fastest are charter schools, homeschooling, and online schooling. Since, as I said, I teach at a charter school, I'd like to focus my reflection on that particular aspect of school choice. On the positive side, I really appreciate the ability we have as a charter school to teach in innovative ways and our ability to adjust our approach to address the specific needs of the children in our care. I also appreciate that while we are still part of the Baltimore City school system, we are less limited by the bureaucracy that can often be a burden to more traditional public schools. For all our good intentions, however, we still have to ask what I think is the most important question: does it work? In other words, when you set aside all our high philosophy, creative pedagogy, hard work, and good intentions, are we more effective and successful in educating our students than the other traditional public schools in our area? As a faculty, we often discuss whether or not we're being effective, and I think schools like ours need to be constantly asking ourselves if what we're offering really translates into measurable positive outcomes. The third trend I'd like to discuss is the increased reliance on technology in education. Technology has both empowered and increased expectations for students and teachers alike. Some trends that are expected to continue are the increased access to computers and the internet, technology being used for assessment, students' comfort with multimedia as a form of expression, such as web pages, video, and the like, the use of blogging as a classroom tool for students and teachers, distance learning thanks to the internet, and increased and more widespread use of handheld devices. I believe strongly that technology in education and in all areas of life will increase exponentially with each coming year. This growth will require that teachers have a broader set of skills and knowledge. Not only will they need to be experts in the content of what they're teaching, they will need to vastly expand their pedagogical expertise to include all the technology tools that will increasingly be available and expected in the classroom. Additionally, teachers will be responsible for teaching their students how to appropriately access and use the technology that is available to them. Personally, I'm excited by the possibilities that technology opens up for us as educators. We often play catch-up with social and technological trends, but I think we need to move fast to stay on the cutting edge of advances in technology. Part of that challenge will be trying to discern which new advances are merely passing trends and which are here to stay. No one wants to be in the school that invests all their money in beta tapes only to be quickly made obsolete by the preference for VHS technology. On the other hand, we can't be paralyzed by fear of change. Many people will fight to hold on to old technology simply because it's familiar, and we're going to need to challenge ourselves to grow and be open to the reality of constantly and more frequently adapting to new technologies as they become available. While we don't want to make rash choices about which technologies to adopt, we also don't want to be fooled into the false belief that the current way is necessarily the best way. Nostalgia can be a powerful opiate, and we need to resist the urge to become too comfortable or risk becoming stagnant and vastly out of touch with the times. The final trend in education that I'd like to discuss is increased globalization. As travel becomes easier and technologies such as the internet seem to flatten the globe, where someone lives has less and less of an impact on how they live. Already, we see increased globalization having a huge impact on education. Educational ideas and research flow freely across national borders. Countries and individuals are connected and affected by each other in unprecedented complex ways. 1 in 5 jobs in the US is connected in some way to international trade, and highly skilled labor is available cheaply via the internet. Someone can have an X-ray taken in New York and email that X-ray to be read by an expert in India. As these and other trends continue to change our world, education will have to adapt to prepare students to be successful in a modern global society. To do so, we'll have to focus on some of the major forces that drive and are driven by increased globalization. We'll need to focus on diversity so as to prepare students for success in a diverse world. As the world becomes smaller, the challenges we face become bigger. Students will need to be prepared to think more complexly about global issues. As individuals, businesses, and nations increasingly work together to address the world's problems, students will need to have the skills necessary to work collaboratively with others. To be successful in a diverse global society, students will need to be prepared to take multiple perspectives on an issue to be successful in a global marketplace. And finally, students will need to have the skills necessary to easily cross cultural and linguistic boundaries. With so much expected of us as educators in the limited time that we have with students, it will be important that we find ways to incorporate these skills into already existing courses. Thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. If there's anything that you'd like to know more about, you can check out any one of these resources that I used to prepare this video presentation.